Hello Automators, thanks for tuning in again. It's time to pit these three devices against each other: the Google Home Hub, the Lenovo Smart Display, and of course the Amazon Echo Show, and this is the second generation. Now, because this is a comparison review, what I'm going to tell you is each device will get a point as it wins a category or something specific here, because I wanted to give you a quantitative measure of how these devices perform. So let's go ahead and start through different indices, different comparisons for each of these smart displays. We're going to start with the voice assistant, which is likely the most important component of everything here. Now, Amazon clearly and consistently loses in terms of studies and tests that are done on the voice assistants. It's just not able to keep up with the Google Home and the Lenovo Smart Display, which both share the Google Assistant. Obviously, this is Amazon's voice assistant, which I'm not going to say the name of, but it is still a very good voice assistant. It just doesn't have the same capability as Google does, and that's obvious because of the different services that Google has available to them. So for the Lenovo Smart Display and the Google Home Hub, you will find the Google Assistant just with better access to things like navigation, to search capabilities, and just reporting different things back to you. I also find it's able to pick up my voice a little bit better, it understands me a little bit better, and it brings back the appropriate results to what I'm asking. So in the end, I have to give a point to both Google and the Lenovo Smart Display here. In terms of hardware, and we're going to give out a number of points here, but we're going to start with the screens. Now, obviously, there is a massive differential when you're talking about the Echo Show down to the Google Home Hub. This is a 10.1-inch screen, whereas this is the Lenovo 10-inch Smart Display. They also have an 8-inch unit that they sell as well, and we'll talk about that in the pricing segment. But these two screens are relatively glossy, relatively high resolution, whereas this is a more matte finish and a lower resolution. The Echo Show is a 10.1-inch touchscreen with a 1280 by 800 pixel resolution, where video is basically put out at 720p. The Google Home Hub, by comparison, is a 7-inch touchscreen with 1024 by 600 pixels in terms of its resolution, and the 8-inch Lenovo Smart Display is 1200 by 800 and 720 video, while the 10-inch is 1920 by 1200 and 720p. Ultimately, the screens on all three of these devices are great. They're just intended for different spots in your house. You know, when you look at the matte finish on the Google Home Hub here, it serves a different purpose, and I think it gives you a different range of locations that you can put this device in. Darker rooms, rooms with a more muted expectation to what's in them. I think the Google Home Hub is going to fit the best out of all three of these speakers. However, in the end, both Amazon and Lenovo's displays here are on another level, and ultimately the 10-inch display from Lenovo is the best. But when you're just comparing these three together, I can give points to both the Lenovo and the Echo Show for their screen. In terms of speakers, physically, there is a single, what they call a full driver here in the Google Home Hub, and if you've ever heard a Google Home Mini, it sounds a lot like that. A little better than a Google Home Mini, but ultimately very similar to that. Now, by comparison, there is a big difference in the speaker capabilities as you jump from here to either of these two. The Amazon Echo Show has two 2-inch drivers on each side of the display and a 9.3-inch passive bass radiator across the whole back of the Echo Show. The Lenovo Smart Display has a 2-inch 10-watt full range speaker, so similar to the Google Home Hub, and two passive tweeters. Now, in the end, all three of these speakers are great, but to my ear, the Lenovo Smart Display is the best all-around speaker and the best all-around setup for that speaker. What I'll say is, and we'll get into a little more in depth later as we talk about the music experience, but I find this speaker a little bit muffled when I listen to it, and in comparison to the Lenovo Smart Display, I find this a much clearer speaker, And the direction that those speakers are actually coming at you really impacts how you hear the speaker. So in the end, the design here hurts this speaker a little bit, but it is still extremely powerful and extremely good. On the flip side, the Google Home Hub, its speaker is really missing that low end of the sound. And so again, it sounds a lot like a Google Home Mini. It's not intended, I think, to sit on its own for really long-term listening, or if you're a real audiophile and you want that real fantastic speaker, this is not the speaker for you. However, I find it very serviceable. I don't find myself shutting it off and switching to these products specifically. I will still play music on this. However, from a pure speaker standpoint and a pure music standpoint, the Lenovo Smart Display is the winner here through and through. All of these devices are capable of speaking through your Wi-Fi at both 2.4 and 5 gigahertz. So this gives you the option to move these devices to, say, your 5 gigahertz radio there, or Wi-Fi signal, to allow you to mix and match which devices are on those different networks. Now, the one difference in terms of radios is the Amazon Echo Show has a 2.4 gigahertz 802.15.4 radio, and so it is actually a Zigbee hub, and that puts it ahead here in the battle of wireless technology. Both of these devices have a camera on board for video calls and other uses. This can actually scan items in the US if you're in the US, and then it will go out and it will search for that item. This is capable of duo video phone calls, and so you have that camera on board. Now, the Google Home Hub does not have a camera on board at all, and so it can only make Google Duo audio phone calls, or phone calls in general. It cannot make video calls at all. However, you can still see the other person if they have a camera on their device that they're using through Google Duo. So that capability is still there because you have the screen. But in the end, my favorite is the fact that there is a physical blocker on the side of the Lenovo Smart Display that allows you to physically block that camera, whereas this is just a push button on the Echo Show. However, the fact that both of these devices has a camera or have a camera on board means they both get a point here. In terms of a processor and kind of the processing power on these devices, you will find them all relatively comparable. But what I will say is that the Google Home Hub, every single time I use it versus the Lenovo Smart Display, is a faster processor. It responds quicker. It is not hung up processing, and sometimes I find my Lenovo Smart Display is hung up. I will not find the Echo Show hung up either, or really slow in its processing, but there is a difference between the processors here. What I'll tell you is that this processor in the Google Home Hub is really future ready in a lot of ways, and what I mean by that is this is ready for 4K at 60 frames a second, and it's also capable of playing some of the latest generation games. Now, we're not talking, your biggest PC video games, but it is capable of processing video games, and I think that ties into some of the latest Google announcements with their game streaming service when you think about what could be with a device like this. The Amazon Echo Show's processor is really intended to deal with applications, and it is fantastic at that, and you can run the browser that's on here very nice. It's a very nice experience, very seamless, very quick response. and ultimately it's still a great processor, but in the end, for that future look, I choose the Google Home Hub here. In terms of design and the overall look and feel of these devices, I think what you're going to find is that both of these two devices have a specific place in your home. The nice wood finish on the back of some of the Lenovo Smart Displays, you can choose something else, but you know, that nice look and the ability to stand it up if you'd like. This is a great design. I love the speaker look on the front of this. It gives it a bit of a retro feel. So overall, the design is really strong over here from Lenovo. We also see great things from them in terms of the overall look and feel, and all the button functions on here feel very sturdy. They don't feel like they're ever going to break. Now, the Google Home Hub, you'll find, has a very specific design to it too. It's diminutive. It's not intended to be in your face, and it is intended to kind of sit to the side and just wait for you to use it whenever you'd like. You can still interact with it, obviously, because of the Smart Display, but it's really designed to be out of the way and not in your face. Whereas the design over here on the Echo Show, I mean, this is a physically large device. It is heavy, it is sturdy, and ultimately I feel like the design is still a little bit clunky here. There's a lot of improvement over the original Echo Show, but I just feel when I pick up that thing, I just feel like I don't want it necessarily sitting in the middle of my kitchen. It doesn't look as nice as, say, a Lenovo Smart Display in my kitchen, and it definitely, I don't think, fits in a bedroom. So I find myself having a bit of a hard time actually choosing a location for the Echo Show that isn't really in everyone's face and becoming the front and center of attention, basically. The big piece of the design that kind of bothers me here with the Echo Show is the way the speakers are done, and it does affect how you actually listen to music and therefore the audio on video. It is a bit muffled here, and you know, I've heard this comment in other reviews that I've done with the Echo Dot, the Echoes in general, and the Echo Plus. People say those speakers sound a bit muffled. Now, to be honest, this is the first device that I would say I actually noticed a muffled sound coming out of. I still like listening to music on it as I get into it, but the design has actually caused, I think in this case, a little bit of a muffled sound. So in the end, on the design and the look and feel, I feel like I can hand out points to both of these devices in this comparison battle. They both have their place in your home. This is much more of a front and center kitchen type device, whereas this is more diminutive, intended for bedroom and lower lighting spaces. We've talked about all the technical specifications I want to here, and we've talked about lots that has gone into these devices. Now let's talk about kind of the outside here for a minute and go into the pricing on these devices. We do have to hand out some points here for pricing because that is part of the experience. Now, the Google Home Hub is the least expensive device from a standard pricing perspective. So this is $149 US every day if you want it, and in a lot of cases you will find it at $99 US. Google almost always puts these on sale, and that causes them to kind of fly off the shelf. Now, moving up a little bit, the Lenovo Smart Display is $199 US supposedly on their website. Now, what I'll say is I have yet to see it in the last few months to go above $149 at any point, and in a lot of cases the 8-inch version is $99. You will always find the 10-inch version of this $50 more, and so you can go ahead and basically get that larger screen for the extra $50. On the flip side, the Amazon Echo Show, the second generation device, is $245 right now on Amazon.com. There's deals and things like that that you see all the time, and Amazon Prime Day was a good example of that, but the lowest I saw it go, or have seen it go, is $215 US. So I think that puts it a little bit on another level, especially once you get over that $200 mark. You really aren't getting that same functionality that you can get out of here. You can basically buy two of these for any one Echo Show, no matter what the pricing is here. You could basically buy two of these And honestly, I have a hard time justifying the overall cost here with the functionality all sitting on all of these devices. For the money for bang for your buck, the Google Home Hub is unmatched here. They have the great processor in here, or the great capabilities of the device, the Google Assistant, and in general, you're going to get that for $99 US. Hard to ignore. Obviously, when this is $99 US for the 8-inch tablet here, that's a great deal as well, and even $149 for the 10-inch is a great deal as well. If Amazon was ever to put on that kind of a sale, I think they'd sell a ton of these devices. Let's talk internationally for a moment, because both Google and Amazon are based in the US, and so their voice assistants perform best in the US, and every other country has to play catch up, and Google and Amazon are both trying to expand internationally. But let's talk about that situation for a second. Overall, Google has a pretty significant lead over Amazon in terms of the functions that are available outside of the US. What I'll say is that lots of the functions for Amazon are really cut off here in Canada, and I really can't do a ton of the things that people can in the US. The best example of that is that so much here on the Echo Show or the Amazon voice assistant platform in general is based on the skills that they have access to in the US. Well, I can't access, I would say, a tenth of what they can access in the US. On the flip side, for the Google Home Hub here, there's a real effort by Google to go and expand as many languages into as many languages as they can, create a bilingual functionality that's available. And really, the Google Translate effort is, again, something that I think Google is trying to go out and give you international access to all of these different features that they're creating. And we are seeing the tide start to turn. People like to complain that Google's not keeping up and giving them all the features, but ultimately, I see the path here with Google. I'm struggling with the path here for Amazon, because they have to get those skills out to everyone to really unleash the power of all of their devices. They also seem a little bit unable to get some of their, Amazon services out to everyone in all of these countries as well. That seems to be a little bit of a struggle as well. The one thing I will say is the only language that's available, visually on the Lenovo and the Google Home Hub is English. And when you come over here to Amazon, what they've done is, with the languages that they have, which is only a few by comparison to the Google Assistant available languages, they have been able to put that on screen here. That's because their interface is a little less sophisticated, I'll say, and they can get away with that a little bit. Whereas here, I think Google and ultimately for Lenovo have to do some extra work on that interface to get it all translated on screen. In the end, internationally, the devices over here are a little bit better. I think you're hearing that come out of me. But what's also interesting here is we start to see a little bit of a separation between these two devices. This is a slightly different platform on here than is on here. So we'll talk about that a little more as we go. But ultimately, what this means is sometimes the Google Home Hub gets ahead of devices like the Lenovo Smart Display in terms of features internationally. And it also does that domestically for Google, but in general, internationally, you're going to feel a little more pain if you buy the Lenovo Smart Display. So here, Google gets the point. In terms of automation and the skills, all of that capability where you're integrating with other services and devices, Amazon is still blowing away Google in a lot of ways. I think Google is going to remedy this situation and catch up here in 2019. But as of this time, routines is so much better on Amazon's voice assistant here, and therefore on the Echo Show. The ability to act as a Zigbee hub also gives it additional capabilities in terms of triggering routines here. So you can actually trigger based off of sensors that you have around your home, and therefore this is a true automation hub. Whereas both of these devices can only be triggered by a wake word at this point, or a point in time. So you can have a point in time on certain days trigger a routine. But again, the way it functions over here with the Echo Show and with Amazon's voice assistant in general are better. And a simple example of that is the simple capability of waiting a minute. I would just like to wait a minute here, and I can't. So Amazon, in terms of automation, they still interact with more devices, they still interact with more services, they win the day in automation. In terms of music experience, now this is slightly different than the speaker. We already talked about the speakers. All three of these devices deliver a relatively good music experience, not necessarily for the money if you were just looking for a music speaker, but in the end, their experiences are all great. Now, Amazon has recently added Apple Music, and I believe this is coming here, although we don't have any official word from Google or Lenovo that their device will be able to play Apple Music. However, we have seen evidence of that, but that is a big deal for a lot of people. So if you're an Apple Music subscriber, you can now put this on here in the US and the UK actually. Now, on top of that, what Amazon has access to is Spotify and Amazon Music. And if you're a Prime subscriber, Amazon Music, you're given a basic subscription. It doesn't actually get you access to all of the songs out there that's on that Amazon Music service, so what actually does happen as a result of that is they oftentimes get you to upgrade, and a lot of people become frustrated with that service. Now, on the flip side, Google and Lenovo have access to the same music services. They have Pandora in some countries, they have Spotify, they have Google Play Music, they have YouTube Music, again, in some countries, and they have other country-specific music services all available on their devices. So in the end, I think the music services is a little better on this side. The other part of this conversation is which devices do they interface with for multi-room audio, and how do they work in multi-room audio? One interesting piece of functionality over here with the Echo Show is the ability to pair with a sub, an Echo sub. Now, you could take two of these devices, pair them with an Echo sub, but I'm feeling like that's going to be pretty bass heavy, to be honest. I haven't done it, but yeah, that's my sense of it. I feel like you're going to be a lot of low end, not a lot of mid and high end, and a bit of a muffled sound. But you do have that capability of still pairing two of these devices. You'll be at $650 US for that setup, but it's totally possible right now. On top of that, you can use this in multi-room audio groups, and it is highly capable. The other nice thing is these devices, when you pairing multiple Echo devices in multi-room audio, they actually basically just read each other, see where they are in the song, and then slowly come together to synchronize. Now, that's different than the Google Home and Lenovo Smart Display experience. I don't find them not to be synchronized very often, but sometimes when you're running through a cast-enabled device or I have a receiver in my home, there can be a delay, and so you have to go into the application and actually move a delay or create a delay in your specific speakers when they're in a multi-room audio group. Now, we talked about what's available over here, but we didn't talk about something like a Fire TV stick, which I cannot get to work. I cannot get it into multi-room audio, and I can barely get it to play music from a device like this. I have to actually use the voice assistant remote that I got with that to really get music working every time with the Fire TV stick. On the flip side, Chromecast is totally integrated with these in terms of multi-room audio groups. The Chromecast audio, which is now defunct or done here, but you still have them in your home, you can still use them. The Chromecast version 2 and version 3 are both devices that you can include in multi-room audio. I have cast enabled receiver, as I said, that can be included in multi-room audio. I have a lot of options here on the Google side because of that Chromecast capability, and that makes the music experience, rather, in my opinion, better on both the Lenovo and the Google Home Hub. Now, in the end though, we do have to talk about a differential here between these two devices. This is Chromecast built in, this is cast enabled, and I will say that this has not worked correctly for almost the entire time I've had the device. This has been a major hang-up, and again, this is where that separation starts to show up between the actual Google branded device and the smart displays that are out there on the market. They seem to be struggling with this cast capability. I've even struggled a little bit with sometimes the Bluetooth capability on this device, and it's just been much more fluid over here with the Google Home Hub. So through updates, these are always repaired, but sometimes the updates take a very long time, and that cast capability has been out for me for almost the entire time I've owned this device. In terms of the video and the visual experience here, we have to hand out some points. Well, maybe we have to hand out some points. Now, obviously things are looking better because they're bigger, they're more full, the screens just look better here in general on these devices. When you're in a well-lighted room, the ambient EQ over here is actually really powerful, and the brightness is actually much better on this device versus the Echo Show. So you can actually go much brighter here and here than the Echo Show, so you have a better range. But ultimately, these screens look amazing. At 10 inches, they look exceptionally good, and even the 8-inch Lenovo Smart Display is fantastic in terms of how it looks. But let's start talking about the services here that are available. Netflix? None. Crave? None. YouTube? YouTube, but it's hard to get to. You know, if you want to bring up my video, well, you have to talk about my video exactly, and then it just doesn't seem like it gets it right as often as I'd like. I can ask for the latest video from a YouTuber and get that. That's not too bad, but I struggle getting specific videos, and how do I even get the results? It's a bit of a struggle. You really have to know what you're doing over here. On this side, the YouTube experience, credit to Amazon for putting the browsers on here, because they have both that Firefox and the Silk browser. That is their browser, actually. Credit to them for production of that. What it does is it gives them access to YouTube, because there is no YouTube app on here. There is no YouTube native capability. So you actually have to go to the browser, you have to bring that up, and then you can search through that browser to go to YouTube. Now that actually gives you a little more control, a little more of what people are going to be used to in terms of control, but you're having to interact with this device directly. So you have to be standing next to this. Sometimes you want to type, but even if you don't want to type and you want to use the voice assistant, you have to press a button on screen to actually type out what you're searching for or what you're looking for on YouTube. Having said that, you can get to it, but nobody's getting the experience right, so nobody gets a point here. None of these services are working, and it's highly frustrating to me actually that none of these services are working. I can do a workaround here, and this is again where that differential in cast starts to show up. I can do a workaround here to get Netflix or any service playing on my Google Home Hub, but it is actually just a screen mirroring capability from a Samsung tablet with Smart View on it. In terms of a visual experience, it's important again to talk about the camera and the ability to make video calls, because this is important. So we gave it a point for having the hardware, but actually executing this is really important. And what I'll say is they both look fantastic. These two devices, the Echo Show and the Lenovo Smart Display, look fantastic when you make these calls. This is obviously going to be a little bit based on your internet connection, but in general, they both look great. The ability to drop in over here is a big thing as well. So you can drop in on other smart displays that you have in your home, or Echo branded smart displays, the Spot and the Shows. and that's a big deal. That is coming over here. It is actually rolling out at this point to some of the smart displays, especially in the US. Again, they have the ability to do that. Now, obviously here, you don't have that visual experience, so these get the point for that. In terms of an interface, really what we have is Google and Lenovo with the exact same interface here. There's really no differential any longer. There used to be a couple of little changes or differences that, you know, again, it went to Google gives their device the update first. Lenovo has to do some additional work, I think is what happens. And so they don't get their interface changes up as quickly. But nowadays, I find it very, very close. But the differential is in interface between these two and the Echo Show. This is a very different interface. I like the settings capability over here on the Echo Show. I like the tap to Alexa feature that's over here on the Echo Show. I think it is extremely powerful, and it allows you to create things like routines really through a bit of a written exercise and a couple of icons. So that capability is really, really powerful. But for me, that's where the interface starts to end with the Echo Show. I don't like how the interface is. It feels like I almost can't do half of the things that I can do. It's a little bit of a struggle to navigate through this. Whereas both of these devices, the interface feels intuitive. It feels like I can do a lot. They get me into the different things I can do very quickly. And I can see things like the navigation in the morning when I've got to go to work, or I want to see my calendar entries. They're showing up here, and it's an easily navigatable situation over here. I feel, again, a little restricted by this. So in the end, Google and Lenovo get the point for the interface. Let's move on to a couple intangibles here. And these are things that don't necessarily fit into those basic functions that most people use these for: video, music, search, and questions and things from the voice assistant. These are other things that are important for you to know if you're making a purchasing decision. Now, the first thing is those browsers on here. We haven't given Amazon enough credit for putting a browser that we can go to any website with. It's a Firefox browser, so really this is an extremely powerful browser, and their Silk browser is actually very good as well. I haven't had a lot of problems on a lot of websites with it, so this is fantastic, and Amazon deserves a point for that. We can't access the browsers that are here with Google and Lenovo here. They are there, but we cannot access them. We don't have a keyboard to go through them or go into them natively. We can't ask to bring them up. We can ask to bring the browser up here. We also have to give an extra point to Amazon for the shopping experience. That scan feature that's available in the US, I wish it was available everywhere. It is extremely powerful and allows you to go straight to a product that you already have in your home. Also, obviously, you're getting access to Amazon's whole store in your country, and therefore the shopping experience can be very powerful. You can also turn on voice purchasing. Google has less options for the places you can buy from. They're just not there in terms of purchasing, and outside the US, there is none. Privacy settings when talking about a smart display with a microphone or a set of microphones in the case of these devices is an interesting discussion, but Google's privacy management is much more open and transparent. Now, what I'll tell you is if you turn off any of the privacy settings, or you basically turn off that Google can utilize the data, lots of the services don't work. They stop working, but that's actually how I know people are making that choice, because they come and they ask me, why is my device asking me for more information when I've given it everything, everything's all set up? And that's because they've turned off the privacy settings in these devices. And so both of these have a very good privacy management suite of settings, whereas this is more like an all or none situation, and very few people have actually turned that off because really nothing works instantaneously. And it's not getting front billing. It's not open, or as open as I will say Google has been. In terms of multi-user setup, this is an interesting conversation. Now, the kids stuff over here on the Amazon Echo is very good. and it gives you the ability to limit kids very well. You can do the same now with Google, and they have their family management suite that basically allows you to add another whole layer to that. You can also manage multiple users in your home, as well as people like grandma and grandpa over here on both of these devices. What I'll say is multi-user setup really works over here. It's not really working over here. And if you go and you read these poor kids who live in a dorm and have an Echo Dot or an Echo, and their friends are screwing with them. And that's a big problem. Amazon needs to hammer this down, really get to voice recognition at a very powerful level like Google has done. You can still break this with people who sound similar to you, but in general, the multi-user setup works, doesn't work. All of these can act as a digital photo frame, but what I'll say is Google has more access to different services. They have an experimental mode that gives you access to not only Google Photos, which lots of people use because they have Android devices, but also Facebook and Flickr accounts. So you can go ahead and connect those and then get these as a digital photo frame with that. There's been some struggles with the Google Photos service kind of automatically choosing which pictures will show up, but the only service available over here, Amazon Prime Photos or Amazon Photos. So again, you have to be tied into Amazon's ecosystem here to go ahead and utilize that. And what I'll say is there's not a ton of people out there using the Amazon Photo service in comparison to something like Google Photos. We spoke a little about the skills and the actions as it relates to home automation, but in general, there are many more skills and actions over here on the Echo Show and the whole Echo suite of products. Amazon just has a fuller system and many more of those skills, or what you would call apps on an iPhone or an Android device. So there's a much more full system here. The Google Assistant actions are really not moving as far and as fast, and so you don't have access to as many services. Amazon's productivity, just their functions around that. So we're talking calendars, we're talking lists and reminders and timers and alarms and all those things. It's way better over here. Google's trying to catch up with their new lists feature, and they will be there on that, but they still don't have something as simple as iOS calendar integration. And this becomes a real problem for people in a lot of cases. So what I'll tell you is that the productivity capability is better on the Echo Show and with their voice assistant. The Google Home application for management of this is much better than Amazon's application here. It is more intuitive. It does allow you to get to better spots in your device. I like the material theme, and I like the consistency between the Google Home application and the Google Assistant application in a lot of ways. I can see how that application still has to get better, but it is better than Amazon's application, which in some cases is sluggish. It sometimes struggles to get me to the place I want. I find the settings a little broken up, a little strangely. So, it's a bit of a struggle over here with Amazon's application. It's not bad by any means, but the point goes to Google and Lenovo here. Honestly, there's going to be some indice here that you're going to think, I don't really care about. So that differential is really negligible, and I'm a little bit surprised by the results, to be honest. Both of these, or all three of these devices rather, have a real point to being in your home and a real great reason for you to go out and buy them, or a number of great reasons. But I'm going to give you my personal opinion here to help you make this decision, and it's going to be based on some things that I see both in the industry out of Google and Amazon and a few other things. When I look at all three of these devices together, this product is highly refined. and it is really specifically made to suit a number of purposes, but it is really specifically made for the future. And this is the biggest key here for me overall. I've talked about the processor here a little bit in the video, but I haven't gone into depth, and I will say that sometimes it is sluggish in comparison to the Google Home Hub. You know, I can ask the same question here. They will both wake up at the same time, and one or the other will pick it up if they're sitting next to each other, but the differential is the response after that. If we're bringing up something, I find this device by comparison sluggish, and so I worry a little bit about the future capability of the Lenovo Smart Display. Will it still be here in 3 years, highly capable, highly functional, and keeping up with all the changes that are coming to the Google Assistant and the interface, because the interface keeps getting better. But this is a highly refined product. So back to that a little bit. This is capable of running Google's next operating system, which is called Fuchsia. Now, we don't know if it'll be fully capable of it, but it is capable of running it today. And that is from tests that developers and people who really get into these things are doing with the device. They're testing whether or not Fuchsia works. It does, and I think that's really important. We also talked about that processor being able to play games, and I think that is a precursor to something showing up here on this device. Why not, if Google is streaming games, you have Bluetooth connectivity, why not give it that capability? I also think in here that processor is fully capable of being a hub as well, and so the radio on board here, I think it's capable of being a hub, and I think that's the reason it was named. Now, those are things that are unproven, and those are things that Google has not turned on or shown any sort of inkling that those things are going to happen. But that is my belief here. So I think this is a 3 to 4 year device from the time that this was launched. I think this will be replaced in 2 years. That's probably the cycle for this device, and I'm sure Amazon's already working on the next version right now. The Lenovo Smart Display, as I said, I think it's getting a little bit sluggish over time here, a little bit slower. I think its Snapdragon processor is going to be outstripped, similar to a lot of tablets, very quickly. So in the end, I think what you're going to get is about an extra year or year and a half out of a Google Home Hub versus these two devices. Not saying these are going to break or anything like that, and both of these have done well to keep up with what Google is doing. I mean, Lenovo's right in the ecosystem. They just sometimes get updates a little bit behind Google. Amazon has done wonderful things with the Echo Dot. When I look at the Echo Dot version 2 being capable of everything that a version 3 is still to this day, that's fantastic, and Amazon's doing a great job. So I don't think any of them are going to shut off after 2 to 3 years, but I do see a bit more of a future here, and I do think this device is going to provide you an extra year to an extra year and a half. So that's my eventual recommendation here if you just have to pick one. So there you have it, guys. Thank you. I know this was a long video. I hope it's really helped you move forward. Again, I don't think you can make a bad decision here. I think you can make a decision for yourself, but I hope some of these things that I've pointed you towards will help you move forward in your decision-making process. And of course, if it has, join the channel. And if you want to help someone else out in your family, go ahead and share this video. That helps automate your life a ton when you go out and you share these videos with your friends and family, especially a video like this. So thanks for watching, everyone, and we'll see you next time.